Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So this past Tuesday night, when I read the executive order against gender-affirming care for minors, which was written in such disgusting and inflammatory language, I did the thing that you're not supposed to do, or the thing that I try very hard not to do, which is that I began doom scrolling and catastrophizing. Project 2025, let me look and see how many aims have already been carried out. Let me think of all the people I know and love who will be most impacted by this. Which checks and balances of government have already been eroded? Let me think of all of the Jewish kids who have to go to school where a presumed Nazi salute has now become a meme, and on and on. And also gnawing constantly in the back of my mind as we witness power and evil power growing stronger and stronger every day. Always the question is, what can we do? How do we stop ourselves from wanting to shut the world out? And increasingly, what do we wish others would have done in past times like this? What can we do to stop things from feeling and getting worse? So if there were ever a poignant time to read about a tyrant whose heart is hardened against people he has power over, this would probably be the week. The Parsha begins with God instructing Moses, "Go towards Pharaoh, Bo el Paro, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of all who work for him." Moses is in an impossible position, asking for compassion and mercy from a figure who cannot experience compassion like a normal human being, whose heart has been supremely or divinely leadened, hardened. And also now it feels as though our own cries for mercy, for compassion, for any kind of common sense even, for immigrants in this country, for the trans and non-binary youth in our lives, are falling on closed and stiffened hearts. What can we do against a real-life Pharaoh and those that are carrying out his decrees who work for him? The biblical response this week is the final three plagues: locusts, darkness, and the death of the firstborn. I found myself this week very stuck on that metaphor of darkness. And the ninth plague is not just any kind of darkness. As the Torah tells us, it is a thick darkness, a darkness that can be felt, a darkness so strong that it darkened even the dark, even the moments that were already dark. It was a darkness so severe that it froze the Egyptians in place. Those who were sitting could not stand. Those who were standing could not sit. Those who were laid out could not stand up and bend over. Those who were bent over could not stretch out. So yes, it's a physical darkness, but more than that, it's a spiritual darkness. No one could move from their places, not just out of physical discomfort, but out of fear. People were frozen in fear. And it feels like we are now once again on the edge of a time of great darkness, great spiritual darkness that we must take seriously. As I went through this week, I began to seek wisdom from those who had come before me, or I tried to at least. And it turns out there is another time where the phrase spiritual darkness, or spiritual blackout actually, comes up again and again and again. And it is, not surprisingly, the Second World War. Over and over again in Drashot that I read, it asks, where is God? Is God with us in this time of darkness? Where is God in this time of spiritual blackout? And then I came across a sermon that particularly struck me, which was delivered by Rabbi Israel Leventhal on Rosh Hashanah 1941 at the Brooklyn Jewish Center. He spoke to his congregation on the precipice of a new year, a new Jewish year, from a place of deep anguish at the state of the world. And I want to paraphrase a little bit of his sermon tonight. So he begins with the Talmud, which of course I love. So there's a reason that I was so struck by his Drashah specifically. He brings a passage from the Talmud, from Yoma, where he says, there are three sounds that resound over the world, that go from one end of the earth to the other. And these are the three sounds. The first is Galgal HaChama, the sound of the revolution of the sun. The second is Kol Hamoneh Shel Romi. Here's how he translates it: the sound of the tumultuous hosts of Rome. And the last is Kol Neshama B'Sha'a Sheyotze Min HaGuf, the sound of a soul leaving one's body as it departs from the body. I have to say the Talmud itself does not elaborate here. What does it mean that these three sounds or cries are sounds the entire world can hear? Why these three? Rabbi Leventhal in his sermon suggests these are three warning cries, warning bells, of a world hurtling towards tyranny that the rabbis in their time were also living through. They were living through this time of the Romans, and that the rabbis say we must not ignore. The sounds of the tumultuous hosts of Rome, the rabbis' way of saying the Romans were on a rampage for power and control, and they started with the Jews, but their quest for domination wouldn't stop there. The sound of the revolution of the sun. So here I'm going to, again, paraphrase what Rabbi Leventhal said, because he has this incredible explanation for what that could really mean. He says, usually when the sun sets on one part of the world, we know that it means that it's shining on another part of the world. But, he says, there is the possibility that the world is about to experience, when he's speaking right now in 1941, a full Galgal HaChama, a complete and total darkness that will envelop everyone. This is the warning sound that the sun is setting for the world, he writes, plunging us into a new version of total spiritual darkness. My drash is doubled, so hopefully... Okay, those were the first two sounds. The sounds of the tumultuous hosts of Rome and the sound of the revolution of the sun. The last sound is the sound of a soul leaving one's body. Here, Rabbi Leventhal says what they are talking about is the soul of the world. This is the real aim of tyrants, he says. They want to crush the world's soul. The aim of those who want to use their power to control and limit expressions of love and joy to only a privileged few is to crush the souls of those who wish to resist and defiantly exist. They wish to make it so we cannot move, so that we are frozen in darkness. They hope to overwhelm us, to scare us, to take away our neshama, that which makes us uniquely spiritual and connected beings. And it is done this way by design. They mean to do that. They want to do that. Rabbi Leventhal characterizes this as the desire to take away the soul of humanity and to instead breed a new kind of world where hatred and cruelty will become the norms of everyday life. All too poignant right now. There is currently a battle being waged for our souls, and we must not let this time crush us. We must hold on to our neshama, that thing that animates us, that thing that reminds us why we are alive. The executive orders and the coordinated hate speech of those in power are designed to overwhelm us. They are designed to freeze us in our places, to make it so that we cannot move. They want us to feel the total and complete blackout, but we cannot let them have that. We can be overwhelmed, we can be angry, but we cannot allow them to take ownership over our souls. The final piece of Rabbi Leventhal's Drashah, he harkens back to a different time of total darkness, that time in the Garden of Eden where Adam is experiencing his first darkness, and he has never experienced it before, and he cries out, "Oy li, woe is me. It's dark and it's getting darker, and I might not survive." He says, this must be the end. Death is coming to me, and the world must be returning to nothingness. So I'm going to quote directly from Rabbi Leventhal now, who says, Many who behold the thick darkness that has come upon the world today are crying those very same words of Adam. This must mean the end of it all. This must mean death, death of all civilization, death of all things we hold dear and cherish. But it is not the end. It is not death. It is only a dark night. The night will pass, the sun will shine again, and out of the horrors and the agonies that come with the night, out of the horrors and the agonies that come from the night will come the dawn of a new day. I want to end with one other sound that the Talmud says at the very end of those list of 3 sounds. And I didn't mention it before because it lists those 3 sounds as the sounds that are heard throughout the earth, but it says, and some say also this other sound, and that is the sound of birth. Kol Leda, the sound of birth. And it feels like this is the antidote to all the sounds that came before it. This is the sound of newness and life. It is the sound that reminds us that creation is still possible, that love is still possible, that resistance in the face of terror is still possible. The call of birth is the sound that reminds us there is still goodness available on the horizon, and there can still be goodness in our lives. The world is full of horror and agony. Yes, it's true. New horror and agony every day. So we must work very hard to not also give over our souls to this agony and only be able to say, oily, everything is so awful. To not only experience the darkness as a place to get stuck and frozen in fear, but also as a place to create and to invest in ourselves, in our souls, and say loudly enough so that others can hear us throughout the whole world, this is not the end. This is not the end of all we hold dear. We will work to birth something new into the world, something that is full of light, full of compassion, full of newness, and we will work to create that as the sound that everyone will be able to hear. Shabbat Shalom.